Hi learners, good morning to you all. I am Professor S. Krupanidhi, heading the Department of Biotechnology at Vignan's Foundation for Science and Technology and Research at deemed university situated in a rural environment, Vadlamudi, Andhra Pradesh, India. Myself and one of my colleagues, Dr. Vijaya, an assistant professor in the Department of Biotechnology, are collectively giving a series of talks on molecular phylogenetics. It's a course that is prescribed for second year bioinformatics students in the art semester. So now we are handling the unit 1 systematics and classification, and in this we covered the topic 1, that is on population, sympatric population, allopathic population. Now we are doing the topic 2, sibling species. Okay, let us have a brief introduction about the molecular phylogenetics and its importance. So nowadays everyone across the globe are speaking on conservation, biodiversity conservation, several things. So is it that much essential, biodiversity and its conservation? Yes, it is very much essential because we have to have a sustained ecosystem. Our ecosystem should be sustainable. How is that our ecosystem will be sustainable? Without flora, without fauna, which are the components of the biodiversity. Okay, so as a result, we have to protect our flora, we have to protect our fauna, conserve the flora and fauna, see that our ecosystem is sustainable. Okay, now with regard to the flora and fauna, there is a bewildering diversity. Huge many number of flora and similarly huge many number of fauna are there on this planet Earth. Okay, so they're all need to be classified, categorized, and they all have to be what is it called, taxonomically. They need to be put in a hierarchical position. So as a result, we have been speaking on species, biological species. Okay, so the biological species is the one that is called, it is a reproductive unit, it is the ecological unit, it is the unit which protects its gene pool. Okay, it is a unit which interacts with the neighboring what is it called, species. So much has been told about the species. Okay, now the bewildering diversity that we are having around us contains good many number of species, both in the flora and fauna. Okay, so in this topic we should have some interesting observation that these species, what we are observing in this universe, are not standalone. They are interacting. As we are interacting with various specimens, we are interacting with the cows, we are interacting with the dogs, we are interacting with the various organisms. Like that, the specimens also interact with their neighbors. Okay, that means each species is having interaction with the fellow species that are prevailing around. Okay, so that interaction only makes us to have a sustainable, what is it called, ecosystem. If you curtail the interaction by denuding the forest, if you curtail the interaction by poaching the organisms, if you curtail the interaction by what is it called, habitat crunching, interacting species will no longer will be there. As a result, species is crippled now. So as a result, our sustainable environment, we are not able to make. So as a result, we have to contribute for the conservation of this biodiversity that ultimately leads to the what is that called, sustainable environment. Okay. Now for all these things, we have to understand a few concepts that are involved in the biodiversity and conservation. So those concepts we are now explaining. Let us see now what is the sibling species.
There are almost 10,000 known bird species on the planet. How did they evolve into so many unique forms? Take the birds of paradise, for example, with their dizzying array of colors, shapes, and sizes. From genetic evidence, we know that the ancestor of all 39 species was a plain, crow-like bird. And the process that caused this one species to split into many is called speciation. Before we explain speciation, let's talk about what we mean when we use the word species. According to the classic definition, species are groups of actually or potentially interbreeding natural populations which are reproductively isolated from other groups. Speciation begins when groups become separated in space or become different enough in form and behavior that individuals from one group no longer regularly mate with individuals outside the group. One way for a new species to evolve starts when a few individuals colonize a new area that is outside their native range. Take, for example, a volcanic island that rises out of the sea just off the coast of the mainland. Over millions of years, as the island grows larger and less volcanically active, plants begin to grow, but there are no birds here yet. Then one day, birds from a common species on the mainland are blown over by a storm and start a new population. If these birds move between the island and the mainland only rarely, the conditions for reproductive isolation are set, and the brand new island population is on its way to becoming a new species. Over thousands of generations, the two populations will be shaped by natural and sexual selection into separate forms, each with a unique genetic fingerprint. But at what point are we confident that this island population has really changed enough to become a new species? Well, let's put our definition to the test. If we introduce a female from the mainland species to a potential mate from the island after 200 generations in isolation, about 400 years in bird terms, will they mate? It appears that these two still recognize each other as members of the same species. How about after another 1,000 generations of isolation? Now, the female finds this island male's song a bit strange, but she still chooses to mate with him. What if we fast forward again to 10,000 generations of isolation? This time, the female doesn't even recognize the male song and is completely uninterested. If this female's mating preferences are widespread in the population, we now have two bona fide species, mainland and island. But these kinds of dating matchups don't happen in reality. Here, because our birds avoid flights across the open ocean, island birds do not regularly encounter mainland birds. Because genes from the two populations no longer intermix, genetic differences accumulate, and the two populations become different species. So in practice, scientists classify species separated in space by their genetic differences, not by observing blind dates. But there is another kind of speciation that can occur when a habitat becomes divided and a once widespread bird population becomes fragmented. Imagine that our new island grows larger over time and the volcano develops a central mountain ridge while a valley forms along the eastern coast. Over time, the eastern birds, who have plentiful fruit resources and only need a single parent to successfully raise young, evolve specialized mating systems. males compete for multiple mates and, to get noticed, evolve fancy plumage and display behaviors. On one side of the valley, the males evolve elaborate head plumes, and on the other, it's the tails that get fancy. At the same time, Western birds are consistently dealing with harsher food conditions and do not evolve a specialized mating system or fancy feathers. Just as before, early in the speciation process, when individuals from isolated populations meet, our eastern and western birds readily mate. But as generations pass and the eastern males become fancier, the western females begin to find the eastern males' habits foreign and surprising. But these traits are clearly not deal breakers. Even after 10,000 generations of geographic isolation, some of the western females continue to find the males' displays attractive. At this stage, the eggs she lays aren't viable because the separated populations have evolved too many genetic differences to be compatible. To review, in this kind of speciation, geographic barriers have split the habitat into 3 fragments, and on each, a unique species evolved. What if the southwestern slope erodes into a low peninsula, allowing southeastern birds to mix with the western birds? By this time, their mating systems are completely different, and the 2 species can't create fertile offspring. Now, related species can coexist, but because they no longer successfully interbreed, there's no going back. So how did the 39 bird of paradise species evolve from one crow-like ancestor? New Guinea and the surrounding islands where birds of paradise evolved have changed dramatically throughout geologic time, repeatedly isolating populations. Over thousands of generations in isolation, natural and sexual selection have morphed the fragmented populations into a wonderful array of colorful species. The process of speciation is ongoing, and split after split, new and unique organisms evolve. Incredibly, all those 10,000 bird species we see today evolved from one single bird ancestor. And it's thanks to the evolutionary processes driving speciation that our planet is home to such impressive biodiversity.
Just now, we have gone through the animated video of avian species and their speciation. In that, the definition for species is given as the natural population which are interbreeding. Okay, so the speciation is an ongoing process. It doesn't stop. Okay, so we are not there as Homo sapiens. We are not there since the beginning of the earth. We were derived. We were descended. Now again, there will be an evolution process. Okay, so like that, the speciation definition is given. Another important feature is the process of speciation they were mentioning, mainland and island birds. Okay, mainland and island birds separated by 200 generations, they identify. And separated by 1,000 generations, they identify each other. Separated by 10,000 generations, the calves, the mating calves of the male bird is unable to perceive by the female bird. So that's what 12,000 generations, if these 2 birds are apart, then these 2 are unable to interbreed. As a result, they go to the status of a species. Like this, it is an allopatric speciation, as there is a barrier for the separation. Okay, so like that, the speciation aspect we have seen. Let us go to the details of this particular chapter called the sibling species. Okay, so to familiarize with the concept of sibling species and to understand the same with a few examples, that's what the objectives of our particular topic 2 of unit 1. So let us see the expected outcome for the learners at the end of this particular presentation. So the learners will be knowing the definition of the sibling species and the concept of sibling species as pairs of physically very similar animals that are regarded as distinct species will be known along the study of a few examples. Let us see the definition of the sibling species. Okay, so usually for the species we give the definition, that is the members of the population that are sharing the gene pool, that is they are interbreeding, they are called as the species, biological species. Now another term that we are adding here is the sibling. What is the sibling? Two or more species that are nearly identical in their appearance, yet reproductively isolated. That's the term here. They are nearly identical but reproductively isolated. That is referred to as the sibling. Now, you please see one of the definition given by a renowned scientist, Ernst Mayr. You should not forget Ernst Mayr. He is the Darwin of the 21st century. Okay, Ernst Mayr defines sibling species as morphologically similar or identical populations which are reproductively isolated. Ultimately, it is said they are similar population. They look like similar populations, but reproductively isolated. That is the essence of the sibling species definition. Now let us see. They look alike. These species, both the species look alike, but cannot breed with each other. Okay. The classic case is one example we see. Drosophila. Drosophila is a fruit fly. Good many laboratories in India are cultivating the Drosophila for genetics research. So the Drosophila is being cultivated in vials, small vials. Okay. So now they have taken an experiment here. The classic case is Drosophila pseudo-obscura. One species, Drosophila pseudo-obscura. And another example called Drosophila persimilis. Drosophila pseudo-obscura, Drosophila persimilis. These two look alike, identical, but if these flies are kept together, they do not interbreed. That's what experiment they have done. Okay. Now, the best represented examples of the sibling species is, although they have been discovered in organisms from protozoans to elephant, they are probably best known and abundantly documented among the insects. Insect population is more. So out of all the classes, phyla among this flora and fauna, among the fauna, the insects and arthropods population is predominant, more than 60 to 80%. The rest is the remaining 40%. These are the small organisms like insects. They can exploit a multitude of niches. So insects can go to any of the niche, consequently change physiologically and behaviorally while retaining the structural similarity. So we are seeing a few of the sibling species from the insect example. Now see an example from tree hopper. So tree hopper originally was considered as a single polyphagous species. Polyphagous species means it feeds on several food materials, fruit materials that are available on the plant. But it actually is a group of at least 6 species. Particularly this tree hopper is a 6 species, each developing on a different species of plant. So that is the example given here. Confirmation or even discovery of sibling species often comes from a detailed behavioral, chromosomal, ecological or molecular studies. Okay, it's not only the preferring a particular fruit and such type of those insects are going to be sibling species, but it will be having its imprint on the chromosomes. Okay, these studies demonstrate conclusively that populations on different hosts, that is, if an insect is eating an apple fruit, it is insect eating a papaya fruit, or in different habitats, are not merely host races or varieties. Race, we as human beings belonging to what is it called Indo-Mongolian race. Dravidian race, later Indo-Mongolian race. Like this, Europeans belonging to the Caucasian race. Okay, so like that African race. So like that human beings, though we're all Homo sapiens, we got different races. Like this, if an insect is adopted to one host, we should not say that it's a host race. It is a sibling. Features of the sibling species. Perhaps half of the crickets, that is moths and some of the insects in North America have been discovered by the sounds they make. Even nowadays you can also observe in this winter season, moths making a lot of sound. Even in the house also, if they get caught, they make sounds. So among North American black flies, more than 1/4 was discovered through the studies of the giant polytene chromosome. These insects are having the giant chromosomes. That is very peculiar to the insects. Okay, and in the case of the amphibians, they got the lamb-brush chromosomes. So these are very peculiar lamb-brush chromosomes, giant chromosomes. Just that's like that I'm telling. In their larval salivary glands. Okay, sibling species often overlap broadly in their distributions. Overlapping is there. See, even the species, one species, the other species, there is overlapping. Okay, sibling species often overlap broadly in their distributions that have been used to illustrate probable examples of sympatric speciation. Sympatric speciation is not allopathic speciation. Allopathic speciation comes because of the barrier in between the members of the population. But sympatric speciation arose from within the population. So this is another important fly that's called apple fruit fly. This apple fruit fly is called Regolitis pomonella. So this arose because of sympatric speciation might have produced the various sibling species when these fruit flies shifted and adapted to new host plant in the same geographical region. So this feeds on the plant, let us say on the apple fruit. So they got attached to this apple fruit, all the progeny over the generations, as we have seen in the video, 200 generations, 1000 generations, they get isolated, forming a sibling species. So the recognition of sibling species is critical to meaningful biological research and effective pest management. Okay, so if any insect is involved as a pest, okay, we have to work out the sibling species of the pest. Otherwise, general, what is it called, pest management doesn't make to get them avoid from the environment. Okay, so here there is another example which is having 40 sibling species, Simulilum, and each biologically distinct, but only some of which actually transmit filaria nematode that causes a sort of onchocercosis in humans and also a sort of liver blindness. So many sibling species of mosquitoes also differ in their ability. How many types of mosquitoes are there around? Which mosquito causes malaria? So like that, then we have got more than 35 varieties of the mosquitoes. Okay, so many sibling species of mosquitoes also differ in their ability to transmit agents of the disease. That is, now the dengue virus is coming from somewhere, some sort of mosquitoes. Okay, and this malaria comes from some sort of mosquitoes. Okay, so like this, a lot of allergy reactions are also being aroused from that of the mosquitoes. So we have to get to know which is the one that is causing, what is it called, that is a pest. Okay, let us see. Natural enemies, especially parasitoids, used in biological control are often complexes of sibling species. The success or failure of a biological control program. See, if you are having a control program where you are spreading, that is pesticides all around, so there it may not be suitable to the sibling species. The other species will die. So as an example, let us take highly cryptic sibling species, group of mosquitoes called Anopheles gambiae. One of the African mosquito, Anopheles gambiae. At present, 5 members are known under this Anopheles gambiae. Their combined distribution covers most of the South Africa and Sahara region, but probably not more than 3 at any time. Okay, morphologically they are indistinguishable. All these 5 types of Anopheles gambiae, they are indistinguishable, but there is variation with regard to their breeding habits, feeding habits, sex chromosomes, ability to transmit malaria, and crossing with the members of the other known strains. So now that is with regard to the Anopheles gambiae. Now let us see the other good example. As we are seeing the picture here, both this type of the doves look alike. We cannot find them different. See, one is willow flycatcher, the other one is alder flycatcher. So do you find any difference? They are not the same species. They belong to the different sibling species. The first pair is the alder and willow flycatcher. Okay, these are the 2 songbirds commonly found in the eastern United States. Okay, now even in the hand they are difficult to distinguish, but their songs are distinct. Okay, so that's what they are called the sibling species. Now, you see one more example here. The second pair contains the grey tree frog and Cope's grey tree frog. These are the two frogs. In addition to the difference in their calls, even frog also make the calls like that for insects. And so with regard to the call, I am telling you, there is an insect by name cicada. Our professor used to say, Professor Partheswara Garu, there is an insect by name cicada. So one of the poets says, "You lucky cicada, you are having voiceless wives." So among the cicada, only the male one makes the sound. The female one doesn't make the sound. So that's what he has given this type of the description. Oh lucky cicada, you are having voiceless wives. Okay, so let us see. Now let us see the summary. The definition for the term sibling species is explained. Ernst Mayr defines sibling species as morphologically similar or identical populations which are reproductively isolated. Okay, so you please see that in your answer, Ernst Mayr name comes. Okay, examiner feels quite happy. Okay, the explanation for sibling species such as the pairs of physically very similar animals that are regarded as distinct species is elucidated. The concept of sibling species is explained using a few examples. Okay, like apple, that is fruit, insect, and Drosophila, and again Anopheles, all those things. Study questions. What is meant by sibling species? Describe sibling species with a few examples. So thank you all with this. Now we have gone through the second topic of unit 1, that's called the sibling species. The sibling species are not the same as the biological species. The two species, though they have got a distinct similarity in their morphology, but with regard to their reproductive behavior, they are different. And with regard to the that is a pest, that is a parasite they carry to transmit the diseases in the humans also carry. As a result, the pest management techniques to be adopted has to be planned. Thank you, one and all. Please go through this. Thank you.